Forget the ACA for a moment, forget the AHCA. I know you and some other economists have sat down and tried to say, well, what's a sensible plan? And I don't think you would sell it as the ideal plan, but what features you think make sense for a sensible plan based on what we know?
The first thing is we need to stabilize insurance markets. And the best way to stabilize insurance markets is to switch to experience rating.
So have more experience rating than we have today.
That's correct. Have more experience rating. You don't have to go all the way to complete rating on individual health level. You could do it more age-based.
Age-based, or maybe some very simple health-based, smoker, non-smoker, people with diabetes or other things. You're saying I'm going to maintain the insurance. The guy who would have to pay $100,000 a year, sure you can have insurance, but it's $100,000 a year. You're just saying we're going to limit that, but we're going to have much more experience rating, for example, than the ACA would allow.
I want to actually be a little bit bolder than that, because I think that the way that we ought to do it is pick a stable insurance product and then afterwards correct its flaws, rather than manipulate the product itself to try to correct those flaws. I like to do it in two parts.
So in other words, we're going to provide some kind of insurance for that guy who, call it a assigned risk pool or whatever you want to do. Okay.
So the first thing we do is allow risk rating, perhaps even on health, so that there's prices that vary by health. Second is that we would have long-term insurance contracts to address this issue of I get sick and my prices go up.
We're not going to mandate long-term insurance plans, or we're going to do the things we need to do to make them feasible.
Yeah, so we'll do the things to make them feasible, but we'll also incent them. So one of the big problems with what I just said, experience rating, is that you're going to have sick individuals paying very high prices, which is not very compassionate, might not be consistent with a lot of people's distributive preferences. But we think that the way to address that is to provide premium subsidies. And premium subsidies that are narrowly targeted at people that are both sick or likely to be sick and poor. And I think that that's a little bit more progressive. If your preferences are progressive, I think that can be a little bit more progressive.
So you're saying sick and poor as opposed to just poor?
Or yes.
Or just sick.
Or just sick. Right now what we have is we have a subsidy just for the sick, but that includes wealthy people that are sick. And that's not a fantastic.
You're saying through community rating?
Through community rating.
And then we have a subsidy for people who are poor, whether they're sick or not,
exactly.
Through the cost sharing.
Exactly. And so, it's kind of a really convoluted way to kind of help healthy poor people, right? You're saying a healthy poor person, first you're going to pay more because it's community rating, even though you're healthy, and then we're going to give you some back through your premium supports. And it seems like that's really convoluted. It's not really well targeted. It's so much easier to say everybody pays a price that reflects their risk, and then we'll come back ex post.
And we'll help the poor pay for it, and we'll help the sick pay for
it.
So your view of the world is let the market shake out, let the market adjust as the world changes, incentivize people to have long-term contracts, which will eliminate some of the risk that's inherent in short-term contracting, and then come back after the fact and say, okay, who do we have to help on premiums, either because they're poor or help because they're sick? Exactly.
And so we put this plan out in 2011, and it's one of those plans that's a bold change to what we've got now. So it's hard to get acceptance of, but I think that a lot of economists would find what we're proposing to be quite good, and it'd be really heartening to see movements along those directions. So
people who are interested in it, where would they find this?
The name of the plan is called Best of Both Worlds, and you have to come up with a good title, and it's available on the American Enterprise Institute website. By the way, to be clear, this is a group of bipartisan economists that were gathered, so there are a number of Democrats, a number of Republicans, and a number of people that have no identification at all with either party had come together to come up with this plan, even though it was under the rubric of the AEI. So you can go to the AEI website. You can also just Google Best of Both Worlds AEI, and you'll find it. It's from 2011. Darius Lakdawala, a person I mentioned earlier, was also in that group, and so he and I have written some op-eds on this as well, along the way that you can find at the conversation.